Are we rolling? We're recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
We're in this.
Woo!
Let's go.
Episode 2.
Dos.
Grown-up kids.
Grown-up kids.
Welcome back.
Come on. Can't believe we're doing this.
I know, it's actually super fun.
I know.
We loved doing the first one.
Yeah, the first one.
So much that we should have stopped like at least a half hour earlier.
It was too long of an episode, but I do think
crack open a cold one.
Yeah, there we
First
go.
of the show.
Crack open a cold one to usually use for
people.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I know you usually use it for beer.
Yeah.
But beer is disgusting. And Dr.
Agreed.
Pepper is beautiful.
Dr. Pepper is so good.
We are I was about to say we're Dr. Pepper girlies.
Please don't
But
do that
we're
to
not.
me.
We're not Dr. Pepper girlies.
No, but Dr. Pepper is a really good drink. Been trying to drink it less, trying to cut back. I told Kiana
Yeah, same.
I told Kiana the other day, it was a couple weeks ago, but I said, I think I'm like the largest I've ever been. But like for me, that's not, I know I'm still not large, but
I wouldn't say you're large.
I'm the largest I've ever been.
You just look a little bit more like muscly, I would say.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's coming off that way. That's crazy.
Maybe the podcast will like transform you somehow.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be like,
Do you mean like in a positive way?
yeah, I'm not saying it's negative already, but I'm just saying like maybe it'll be like, oh, I'm going to start working out because we're doing the podcasts all the time.
No, I agree with you.
And then
I agree with you.
maybe
Yeah.
they'll watch you transform. Although it's really hard to tell probably when you're just sitting in a chair.
Especially when I'm often wearing oversized shirts. I mean, this is probably one of the most form-fitting shirts I have, and it's still not that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love filming the first
It
episode.
was so fun.
Yeah, that was a great
And now
time.
we have a little different setup.
Yeah.
We'll probably be here for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah,
At
this
least-
setup is...
At least a while. Might switch it up a little.
Yeah.
But
I was watching a podcast on my way over here to film today, and the George Janko show. He had John Bellion on as a guest, who is my favorite artist, along with the Beatles. It's like a
I was about to say.
it's like a 1-2. It's a tie. I
It's
mean,
a 1-2.
I cannot. It's like a 1-1. Like I can't choose between the two. John Bellion is literally a legend, and I was watching the beginning of the podcast. Didn't even get more than like 5 minutes in, but the setup that they had was just, they were sitting on these couches, and like they had like a boom stand, like reaching over the back of
like
the
the
couch to
arm.
them. It's just
Yeah.
like, and now
Maybe
that we
we'll get
filmed an
arms
episode,
eventually because then we don't have
Right.
to hold them.
agreed. But now that we filmed an episode last week, and then I was watching, I was like, wow, I need a boom arm.
You said my hands are tired.
But anyways,
yeah.
yeah, we had fun.
Yeah. I really loved it. It was great. Super great time. They should go
Super
watch
fun.
it if they haven't.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
listen or whatever.
Go check out episode 1.
Let us know if you're broom versus mop. Oh, which can we just revisit that real quick?
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
winning.
Congrats.
We're going to have to check in every episode because
Every episode.
maybe not.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I
But
think,
like, I am winning right now with mop.
yeah.
And I also noticed, I'm not going to name any names, probably because we're not allowed to, but there is one student in the youth group, boy, that voted broom. I mean, sorry. That voted mop.
Oh, what?
But every other mop vote has been a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And every other broom vote, except now one person, has been a guy. And I think that's a study on something. You know, that's got to be something psychological. Like almost every single guy has said broom.
Have we
except
uncovered
one.
something? Have we uncovered something?
This might be like one of those lifelong, like worldwide debates of like.
Did you hear about what
why
happened with the guy with the dress? The black. Oh, did you send that to me?
I think I did.
Yeah.
The black and white.
No,
blue-
black and
or
blue or white
He
and gold.
murdered his wife.
Yeah, that's brutal.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Also, they live in a rural island off the coast of Scotland. and I'm trying to figure out which one.
Oh yeah,
because
you
I've
went.
been to a rural island off the coast of Scotland, and I'm
That's
curious if
bizarre.
it's the same one. But I don't actually know. I might find out. But
They were actually your host family. I'm
my
just
host
kidding.
family was the
I'm joking.
greatest human beings on earth.
I know you
But-
actually have great stories for
Okay,
another podcast.
Oh,
I would love.
actually, that's a
honestly.
great because I have some stories from them.
Yeah, that was.
It was so.
I was
fun.
crying laughing at some of those
Oh, yeah.
stories.
So funny.
Good times.
Anyway, song of the week.
Song of the week. Me or you first?
You can go first. I went first last time.
Okay. In line with my love for John Bellion and just the things that he works on and whatnot, one artist that I've really come to love is Lawrence, who's signed to his record label, and he does a lot of like writing with them, I believe, and mixing and whatnot. So, Lawrence has a song called 23, but then they released a version of it that they refer to as acoustic-ish, the acoustic-ish version.
Love that.
It is literally so fun to listen to. So 23 by Lawrence, acoustic-ish version.
Okay. I'll probably listen to it.
You should.
I feel like I've heard some of the other Lawrence songs, but I wouldn't like know them by name, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But like I know I've heard them at some point,
Right.
and the name sounds familiar and I can like picture it, but I don't
Yeah.
actually know what they are.
They have many good songs.
But I'll listen to it. Mine
Brother,
is...
sister duo. Oh.
Love those.
Love those.
But my song of the week. So last week I talked about a new album that came out,
Oh, yeah.
Billie Eilish's album.
Yep.
And
Oh, I listened to it. Fire album.
yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
so good.
Album was so good.
But then there's another new album that came out. I don't think it was also my birthday, but it was not that long before. But Rainbow Kitten Surprise, another questionable artist. I don't know why you're making that face.
I don't love the new album.
Oh, wait, did you listen to it?
I have listened to it.
The whole thing? It's long.
Yes. It took me a couple weeks of
Yeah.
like going to it and coming back.
Okay, well,
There are
I
a couple
feel
good songs
like
though. So
if you revisited some of them,
yeah.
you would like them because it took me a couple listens to really get into it.
Okay.
But now there's probably like 5 or 6 songs from it that I love.
Ooh.
And one of them is called Cinderella. And that's my
remember
song
it.
of the week.
Okay. Song of the week, Cinderella
Because
by
it just
Rainbow
starts
Kitten
like
Surprise.
very like bass-liney, heavy, like got like kind of a funk groove,
Okay.
funness
Yeah.
to it.
Funness.
And that's usually where I reside.
Yeah. I agree.
So
I think we have that in common.
Yeah. the bass lines it's the bass lines. If a song
Yeah.
has a good bass line,
I agree.
I'm there.
I agree. Your boyfriend plays bass.
Yes, he does. He plays it really well.
He does indeed.
And he's writing our intro music, which is bass line heavy. So,
Beautiful. I love that.
yeah.
We gotta have him on the podcast.
Oh, he'll be on. He'll be on. the
Yeah.
podcast.
I'm
We
thinking
have quite a few little guests that I have in mind.
the fun
I
thing is
thought
like
about-
our guests, I feel like a lot of them that we'll do aren't necessarily like these names that people would know.
Oh, no.
But they're like
They're just people we
friends
love.
that are close friends or
Yeah.
family members or whatever that are just like, they're such fun and high quality human beings.
Yeah.
That's like,
It would just be a good time.
if you even a little bit enjoy listening to the two of us talk about whatever the heck
Right.
we do,
Yeah.
you would love these other human beings
Yeah.
as well.
I think it would be especially funny to have our parents.
Oh yeah, eventually.
But then also, I did think it would be really funny to have Maisie and Jude
Yeah. We
and sit them down at the mic and just kind of see. And for reference, Maisie and Jude are Seth's kids.
yeah, my two kids.
But like,
Oh
just
man.
seeing what they would say when you put a mic in their hand. Like Maisie's so funny.
And the good thing about pulling them onto the podcast and doing this is there's not like an audience of people sitting
Right,
in the
yeah.
room.
So they wouldn't like
Sometimes, even though my kids are both so outgoing, I mean, we were talking about it yesterday. Jude does not stop talking, but it's not like an annoying, like roll your eyes, get irritated.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
He's so cute.
He also has no volume below an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. We went out to eat yesterday and he was even
For Father's
Kiana
Day,
was
yeah.
like, oh, you're so loud.
But like, even though it is that instant reaction is like, dude, please. But even while I'm saying like, bro, inside voice, I'm
He's
also
so
cracking
funny.
up laughing because
Yeah. And his voice is just so cute.
Yeah.
He's got a cute little voice.
Yeah, he talks in circles. It's funny. No, having them on the podcast would be fun because I think they would be themselves because there's not like this nervousness
right.
to it. So
the other day when I was at your guys' house, I don't think you were standing there, but we sat down on the couch and Jude was on this side and Maisie was on that side, and it was to watch Animal from the Muppets, like clips.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And when it turned on, and the first one was only like a 30-second clip, but Jude like sat next to me and then like smiled and side-eyed me and was like, "You have to watch the whole clip with me." But it was like, he wasn't like looking at me, but he was smiling.
Yeah.
Like it was this cute little like, I cracked up. It was so funny.
He has so many moments like that.
He's hilarious.
Yeah. He started saying the phrase, "I suppose," before everything. So
No way.
I know,
That's
but like,
so cute.
who taught him that? Because I really don't use the phrase "I suppose" at all, and Kiana doesn't really either. So like, I don't know. And Maisie,
Maybe
never
it's from
really
like
Maisie.
one of their like Bluey or
like
some
a show that they
something.
watch or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I think kids in general soak stuff up, but it's in our genetics that we soak up even more from movies and TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially.
That's not scientific, but
for our family it is.
So I have no idea where he gets it, but the kid just goes off with the phrase "I suppose," and he uses it so perfectly. But then it's also like off the wall moments. He'd be like, "Can I have a roll up, like a little fruit snack type thing? Can I have a roll up?" Yeah, sure, buddy. I suppose I'll have a roll up. Yeah, no crap. You just asked us.
His own inner monologue.
I know, right? Like,
that's so amazing.
Or like, "Dude, you want to go pick out a book for bedtime?" "I suppose I'll pick out a book for bedtime." And it's
just like a little butler or something.
And it's not "I suppose," it's "I suppose."
That's so freaking
I suppose
cute.
I'll pick out a book for bedtime.
I can hear it in his little voice.
It's amazing.
I almost want to tell like other Maisie stories, but I'm like, no, that's a whole different episode.
That is a different episode,
a whole kids' stories episode. Because there's so many. Even from your kids alone, but like all of our cousins and stuff and all the little kids that have been around.
Yeah,
you got a lot.
You lived with our little cousins for
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
you got a bunch of them.
Plenty of stories.
Oh, man. Yeah, we'll make that a thing sometime soon, huh?
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. But we're talking about dating as Christians.
Right.
Which now we've both done.
You're currently doing.
Yeah. Currently my situation. But you've also been there, done that.
Yeah.
And now married as a product of that.
Right. For 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah. 2017 and it's 2024. So 7 years. We just had our, actually.
Yeah, you just had your anniversary.
We just had our 7th anniversary.
Like last Sunday. Like a week ago or something, right?
Yeah.
The 9th?
The 9th.
Yeah.
June 9th.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Where do you want to begin?
Well, you didn't really like date a lot in high school.
No.
You had like girls that you liked or girls that liked you. You also were in like a very different place, I feel like.
Yeah.
But you didn't really date in high school. I didn't date at all in high school. I just didn't talk to people in high school. But I didn't really date outside of high school until now with Caden.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe we can start. Why didn't you date in high school?
I feel like my answer for me, that's a big question. I think the reason is, a couple things. Number one, mom and dad's stance for me was that you're not allowed to date, but they didn't make it this really big deal.
Really? I didn't know that.
See, that's the thing is like, it wasn't really a big deal.
It was like a hard line, I feel like. Right. Them, which a lot of things kind of weren't.
It was like,
some things were, but.
I think here's what I always knew is if I was going to begin to like a girl, I have feelings for some girl or, whatever, she like me or whatever, I knew mom and dad weren't going to be down for like her and I to be hanging out or go over to her house or whatever. Just at that age, like they weren't about it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was like, this isn't worth it. But on the down low, yeah, I mean, I was constantly like liking a girl.
Yeah.
Or hoping for some girl to like me, of course. And
I remember some of them.
yeah. And I think ultimately,
why are you laughing?
I think, okay, I was just like a typical teenage boy in the sense that, like, obviously, whenever I thought of liking a girl or them liking me, I just thought of like all the stuff that we could do or get away with.
Yeah. Right.
Physically. Was never really, I think what I remember is knowing I couldn't get away with stuff like physically in person. Also knowing if I ever tried that, I might feel so guilty I won't follow through with it anyways.
Yeah.
Therefore, what I quote unquote settled for, thankful, by the way, that I didn't go end up making some of the mistakes and decisions that I could have made or whatever, or wished to make in the moment. But what I basically pursued them was just like, I think like these connections of like verbally just constantly like this reassurance of telling girls how I feel about them or what I think about them. And then like hoping or whatever that they say some of the same things. So yeah, I never really dated in high school or anything like that. And never really, I had one relationship with a girl that, she's a great girl. I think, she's married.
She is.
Yeah.
She's having a baby.
She's having a baby. That's so cool.
Her life's
That's awesome.
great now.
That's so amazing.
Seems great.
Yeah. And belongs to a great family. So yeah, there was one girl that
I guess
was
you
like,
did technically like date one person before Kiana.
That was pretty much it. Yeah. And I guess like for it being a high school thing, it was like all serious.
Yeah.
But like in the grand scheme of life,
families
it wasn't.
also knew each other. So it was like more of a big deal because it was like we were around each other all the time.
Right. So yeah, I would just say a lot of learning experiences. Like, to be honest, I look back at that time in my life and I was just really selfish. I was a bit of a douche and it just is what it is. I'm thankful, truly, like actually thankful the way that the blood of Jesus works. Cause like, I'd be walking around with a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
I feel like just some of the things I said to girls or whatever, or just some of the ways I thought about them or talked about them to friends, just the ridiculous, but whatever.
Yeah. Which is probably honestly really encouraging for a lot of like teenage guys now. Not because it's like, oh, I can do that, but more so like,
I've struggled with that.
A person who like I look up to or is married and has kids now and has like a seemingly really great, wonderful life was
not
once,
seemingly. I do have a great, wonderful life.
No, but like from an outsider's perspective, like was at one point not like perfect or like blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
Because for a lot of teenage guys or girls, it probably is a lot of like shame of, man, why do I want to do like this and this and this when like I probably shouldn't, or like blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think I think even when you're like when you're young, and you're attracted to somebody, like I don't think it's wrong that your mind wants to wander.
Yeah.
But I do
we're
think
kind of designed that way.
We are. And there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's the honing in, and parents can help with this stuff, especially if the parent relationship with a child is really healthy. But I think that's not as common in our world today.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times kids or students, I'm a youth pastor. I keep calling everybody students.
Everybody's a student.
Everybody's my student. But a lot of just young people in general feel like, okay, I'm not supposed to act on these things. So even just having the thoughts or the ideas of these things or the feelings about someone like this is like a shameful thing.
Like it makes me a bad person or something.
And then it's, instead of talking about that, the normal thing to do that our flesh tries to convince us to do is then hide that.
Right.
And when we hide that, then we have more extreme thoughts, and the response becomes to hide that. And then when those thoughts do finally form into you just keep thinking about or
Eventually it's gotta
envisioning
go
or
somewhere.
dreaming of. Yeah, exactly. So then eventually you take that first step into like doing something physical. And then again, the response is to hide that because you don't want to feel the shame
Right.
that could come from somebody else about knowing this or
Right.
knowing I think this.
Yeah.
And so I think it just snowballs. For me, I had begun to step into like just some of the physical sides of a relationship in ways that I thought maybe I could get away with it here or there. And immediately just felt so much shame. Like, yeah, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I could talk about this stuff for hours. I have talked
And
about
we
it for
will.
hours.
That's kind of what this is.
Not one
Not
episode,
an hour
but
today.
like, yeah.
But yeah.
So
Yeah. Man.
yeah, but I don't want to talk too much.
I mean, we'll do a little back forth.
Yeah,
A little ping
a
pong.
little back forth. I usually feel like there's an and in there,
I take it out.
like
A little pickleball. Ding, ding, ding,
little
ding.
Bonnie Clyde, little Ebony Ivory. You got to have the and in these.
Yeah. But we all know
Little
what it
Simon
means.
Garfunkel.
Simon Garfunkel.
I'm trying to think of other.
We'll shorten things as much as possible. It's just fun. More fun that way.
I was gonna say little tit tat, like tit for tat, but I was like, oh, but it's not the word and.
I mean, it still works out. You still
not
took
the expression.
I don't know if we want to use that one.
Yeah. No.
I. Like it's eye for eye.
Anyways, what a stupid tangent to go on. That was completely pointless. But yeah, so I think what was cool was, even though I had thoughts that objectified girls, or just in general, just had like I think I had at least a semi messed up view of what a relationship is, and was more so focused on what I could get out of it, especially physically, but even emotionally too. Even though that existed, the example that we saw before us with mom and dad was something that was really healthy. And I think even though I didn't know that I knew healthy relationships, I kind of did.
Yeah.
You know,
So
which
then
was
you
really
still
cool.
sort of operate from that place of like, there's a bit of a standard, whether you kind of realize it or not,
Right.
that you're operating out of. Yeah.
I think that's really important. Part of my story and your story too, just with mom and dad, is, you know, they weren't perfect and whatnot, but we saw them, you know, navigate through like living out their dreams together, you know, being in ministry and pastoring a church and discipling people and whatnot. And then we also saw, you know, like we had game nights as families or as a family and movie nights and dinners around the table, even though our lives were crazy and we ate so much fast food and we were always running from here to there. We'd be at the church.
9 p.m.
Oh, we had dinner at 9. I've had dinner.
I still have dinner at 9 p.m.
I had dinner before getting married, like later than 8 p.m. more times than before 8
for
p.m.
sure.
in life.
Eating at 5 p.m. was unheard of.
It's crazy that
3
that's
or 4
my life
p.m.'s
now.
a lunch.
Yeah.
For our family.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my life now with Kiana and the kids is like we're constantly eating dinner like earlier than 6 p.m. and now
Honestly,
it's normal.
I don't understand like how mom and dad did that when we were little kids.
I still don't know how. You're saying the opposite. I was gonna say I don't know how I'm doing it right now. It still feels weird to me. I mean, I'm 7 years into marriage or whatever, but
like it doesn't like because even when I lived with our aunt and uncle and their 6 kids, dinner was at like 5:30 ish, somewhere around there,
right?
Typically. And like, it makes sense because the kids go to bed at like 8:30 or something like that, or 8 or earlier if they're really little. Yeah. And I like think back to mom and dad doing that through our entire growing up. Like when did I can't even imagine our parents with like a newborn. Yeah. Like when were we babies? Because I can't imagine their lifestyles. And like they still had a baby.
The sleep schedule of a baby.
Yeah. Like I can't imagine because our mom just like does stuff all the time and she's amazing at everything and she has a million projects and they're all amazing.
Nonstop.
I can't imagine how she did that and had 2 little kids
Yeah.
Which, like, we're 5 years apart. So by the time that they had me, I was
mature.
Like Maisie's
I was
age.
basically a third parent. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
yeah.
But like, it still blows my mind. I don't understand how they did that.
No, I completely agree.
And I probably will do it as well because I don't want to eat dinner. Well, I don't know. It depends.
It's tough to navigate.
We'll see.
Well, that's the thing is like I'm still not used to eating dinner so early for me.
Yeah.
But like for my kids.
Right. It just makes everything probably easier.
Oh my gosh, 1,000 times easier.
Especially too, like if you're like, oh, my kids need to go, or I want my kids to go to bed at 8 or 8:30. It's like
8:30.
You got to put them. They got to eat in enough time to do all that stuff.
Yeah, we really
so that you can have time by yourself.
I don't know how we get on such a tangent about these dinner times. This is crazy.
I don't know. Mom and Dad.
We had a great example.
Yeah, we did.
And I think the other thing too is we really saw mom and dad have conflict and be frustrated with one another. But then instead of going and hiding in a bedroom or giving each other the silent treatment for hours or whatever,
they just would kind of figure it out.
Yeah, they would figure it out. And sometimes they figured it out loudly. And sometimes they figured it out, maybe not the best way in terms of, well, actually, no, whatever. Sometimes it was loud or it was an argument or whatever. But ultimately, like even while they were in conflict or arguing or frustrated with one another, there was a sense of like, we will be snapping out of this any moment.
Right.
I remember numerous times growing up, and actually now I've experienced it in my marriage with Kiana, and it's like I laugh sometimes when I think about it, but numerous moments growing up where mom and dad are in like what we as kids felt like was a knockdown, drag out fight.
I would start crying and be like, "They're gonna get divorced." No, you're like, "Chill out,
right?
It's fine."
That was me.
I mean, no, you would be super nice about it, but you're like, Jesse, it's okay. Like, they're not going to get divorced.
They do this all the time.
But it's so funny. As a kid, I would cry like every time. I'd be like, this is the end.
Right.
Our family's falling apart.
But ultimately, it's just funny because there's times where mom and dad are just, I remember we used to play the Settlers of Catan.
Many.
And this was years before it was like a really, really popular game, but it had already won a bunch of awards, but it kind of wasn't super widespread yet. Subtle flex. Our family loves our games.
We've been Cataners for a long time.
For longer than you. No, I'm just kidding.
Catan.
Yeah, I hate when people call it Catan, even though it might be the right thing.
Probably is.
I've been calling it Catan.
We're Catan people.
I've been calling it Catan way too long to switch now. And also, a bunch of the guys I play games with every week, we play Catan sometimes, and I got them all calling it Catan.
So you got to keep it up.
I feel really good about it. Yeah,
that's good.
Catan? Nah, miss me with that. So, anyways. I remember one time we played Catan at the Judd Road house, technically in Milan.
Or was it so many houses?
I don't know, but
Celine.
Point is, we played in the dining room upstairs, and mom and dad were into it because they were each about to win, and I think they put the robber on each other to stop them from getting the resources that you need to win.
Yeah,
and I just remember. Maybe they stole a card or whatever it was, a function of the game that you need to utilize in order to win the game, like super normal. And I just remember them getting so at each other's throat about it. And, but then literally 5 minutes later, we were like, hey, what are we doing for dinner?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and so
I do remember crying at that table though.
Yeah. There were numerous Catan fights at that table.
Yeah, for sure.
But, and it's funny because that I've watched healthy conflict, and that spilled into my marriage with Kiana. We've had moments where we're super frustrated with one another. Look, it does not matter who you end up in a relationship with, whether you're in the dating stage or you move on into being engaged, or you've moved all the way into marriage and you're a ways into marriage and you have kids. Like, it does not matter. It continues to come up in relationships is that this person was raised and parented differently than I was. What's normal for them is different than what's normal for me.
Right.
A small example is what time we ate dinner, like that stuff.
Yeah.
But then a bigger example is how to handle the conflict and how to, how to communicate through those things or whatever. So, or how to react after even a conflict has been resolved. Like, so for me, just because of the example with mom and dad and just how we grew up, I snap out of it so quickly. Like, I'll be mad at somebody or frustrated with them about a game or
Yeah.
about something that's maybe more serious. And like 5
We
minutes
just get over
afterwards,
stuff pretty
I
fast.
don't friggin' care.
Yeah.
Or an hour afterwards or whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with my connection with them whatsoever. And so
Right.
Kiana and I have had to learn that with each other.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably pretty abnormal for most people. I mean, maybe not, but I think it's like
Yeah, I don't know.
just the idea of conflict in general. But that's like a weird roundabout segue way to say like, it is really interesting, especially as a girl. And I'm 25, so I've like been at this place for a while now of watching like young Christian guys. And I've been in environments where this is like a heavy, big like thing, is like watching Christian guys and the way that they interact with girls or like don't interact with girls. Like I went to Bethel where like everybody's trying to marry somebody
Looking
and
for wifey.
everybody's single, but then like they don't actually do anything. Like the amount of guys that I knew that went and like talked to every girl, and it's like one extreme or the other. It's either like every guy that you talk to, it's not just like a friendly conversation. It's like, I think you're my wife.
Whoa.
Or it's like they don't even want to talk to you because like they don't want you to like think that like they're interested in you. Like
Yeah.
no one can just be friends.
Right.
It's like so high stakes. And so then no one
Yikes.
ever does anything about like guys rarely ask girls out. They rarely do anything. Like I think now this generation more than ever is like they expect girls to like really do a lot of the like heavy lifting to get somewhere.
It's whack.
And I just think that's so interesting because I feel like I grew up thinking like, oh, the guy like asks you out, the guy pursues you, and like of course, yeah, you give it back.
You
like,
need
it's-
that. You
he
need
needs
that,
like
though.
affirmation and
Right.
stuff like that,
Right,
probably to like continue.
Right.
But we just like, I don't know, the example that like our dad set, you set, all of like our uncles or any of the men in my life was very like the guy goes after the girl and like kind of like wins her heart type of like
Yeah, and
thing.
her family's hard.
Right, yeah, and like
everything.
you not to like prove yourself, but kind of like you do sort of have to prove like, hey, I'm a good guy that is going to take care of this girl and like blah 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 and like take care of her heart and
Yeah.
provide whatever. And nowadays, I don't know if it's just because there's things like social media where you have every option available to you, so you just pick none, or if it's like they're like fear. It's probably a collection of things, but it's super interesting how today it just seems like no guys do anything. So then girls kind of feel like, oh, now I have to go out of my way. But then it's like if you get rejected, then it's like embarrassing. So then the girl doesn't ever want to do anything either.
Yeah.
And so then there's so many
Wow.
single people. Like of all the environments I've been in, which like we went to a college group in Wisconsin, a lot of those people were single and like,
Yeah.
or even just like guys that I talked to and like interactions I had, it was very like, oh, like we talked for like a year and I'm thinking like, surely something's going to happen. Like we've been talking for like a year. I'm so confused. Or like
Right.
even conversations you'd have with people and then like nothing would happen. Like,
I think of one specific
yeah,
example.
I think we're both
but yeah.
thinking of one. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's like the lack of communication. Cause even to me,
Right.
I'm like, as a girl, I'm like, if you don't want to date me and we've been talking for a year and you're like, even telling my brother like, oh yeah, I want to date her. But like, then you don't talk to me. If you're like afraid or you're
Right, right.
confused or something, just tell me. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I would just rather know. Like,
Yeah.
be like, hey, I'm really unsure about this. I don't know. I'm like, okay, great. At least you told me and I know where you're at.
Yeah,
and I can be like,
communication.
cool. Like, you do your thing. I'll do my thing. If it works out, it works out. If not, it doesn't.
Right.
But like the whole like just leaving people without any sort of understanding of what's happening in your brain.
Right.
Or like just you're so afraid or paralyzed that you just do nothing. I'm like, all these people are going to end up alone.
Yeah. Well, I think multiple things come to mind, even as you're talking about all that, which I think is perfect. We're talking about dating as Christians. We're talking about, and I think even this podcast I think it's aimed at people a part of Generation Z and maybe even like myself, maybe like young
Yeah.
millennials. I think I'm a millennial. I don't
You
even
are.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then hopefully even like younger Gen Z,
Yeah.
but not that, whatever. So point is, some things come to mind. Number one, I think the whole purpose of dating is you're building trust,
Yeah. Right.
like, and the thing is that, so dating is actually only beneficial or helpful if it's building trust and building towards something. What is that something? It's marriage.
Right.
But, so that means that the whole time you're dating, and that whole process is opportunity after opportunity after opportunity with, from a guy's perspective with the girl, or, with a boy or whatever for girls. But it's opportunities to like constantly respond to them or approach them, interact with them in ways that are building trust and confidence.
That like you are who you say you are.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you're talking about some of the indecisiveness and the hesitancy. I see that all the time in Gen Z as a youth pastor, and not necessarily only with dating, although for sure, but also with other things, like even just committing to something that would be in your schedule regularly. And I think one thing, and you brought it up, is having all these options. And I've heard some people talk about this. A good friend of mine, Nate, who has his own podcast. I'll plug it because it's a sweet podcast, Father Focus.
Yeah.
Look that up. But I remember Nate, who discipled me for a couple few years there. And
like, he's both of our boss.
Yeah. Nate and his wife, Christina, are just like fantastic influences and good people. And honestly, I miss them since I moved to Colorado. Nate's a good friend. So anyways, I remember talking with Nate multiple times, and just like the options and the access to, from a guy's perspective, this access to see all these different girls,
right?
My age, maybe they're also Christians. Like, I feel like so many young people are like, I'm attracted to them. They're a Christian.
Right. Those are the only,
those are the two boxes we got to check. Right. And
yeah.
so there's just all these options, and it's this constant sense of, well, I don't want to commit to anything because what if something better comes along? And I think there's an epidemic of thinking that about relationships and finding that person. But I think it's also in a schedule, trying to get students to commit to a summer internship with me. Sometimes in the past, this year it's been amazing, but sometimes the past has been really difficult because what if I get offered a job where I can make a bunch of money and now I'm locked into doing this 2 days a week for 4 weeks or 5 weeks? And I would have to miss out on something that came along. Or what if my friends want to take a trip? Or what if my family schedules a vacation? And I'm like, okay, do you have a job offer? Do you have a vacation schedule?
Right.
Is there something that you're doing with your friend? No, there's not.
Yeah.
What is the, it's this constant idea. And let's just be real. It's all rooted in, let's get a little harsh for 2 seconds. It's all rooted in selfishness. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just a lack of identity, because it's like,
absolutely.
It's like, if I know that who I am, and like even the example of like saying yes to an internship for a few weeks or something, or a summer. If I know who I am and I'm like, oh, you know what, I really need to make money, but there's this opportunity that I do really, really want to do with a bunch of people that I know are going to further like just who I am in my life. And it's going to even just down to, it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Then I'd be like, this is opportunity that's already here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go with this and just trust that this is going to benefit me one way or another.
Right.
And even maybe it will lead to like me having a job, or it'll lead to like this or that or whatever, or just like long life friendships, or like you just really have no idea what comes out of something. But I don't really think this it's like most people don't think about it that way.
Right. No, I don't think most people can.
It's the immediate result. Like, what's this going to get me and what's this going to get me? And if I compare the two of them, then like even one that doesn't necessarily exist yet, it's like, okay, like even a relationship, it's like, okay, well, there's this girl or this guy in front of me that's like, he's most of the things that I want, but like there's this and this missing, but like he's so wonderful and he has a great heart and he's really loving and kind. But like, but I really wanted somebody that was like into sports, and this guy's not, or whatever. So like, I'm not gonna, and I'm sure it's more complex than that. That's like really dumbing it down. But like to say no to the person in front of you, the idea of somebody that doesn't even exist to you right now, or maybe it is a person that exists, but it's not a person that you're interacting with or whatever, is wild to me. Yeah.
And I think there's the side of it where it's like, if you're just not If you're just not attracted to someone, or if you don't click with them,
that's
or if
one
there's just no desire to be in a relationship with them, then okay.
Yeah.
But if it's like, wow, my heart's really in this.
Yeah.
I feel pulled towards this relationship or this person. Like, I feel love for them, or there's a desire to like get to know them and pursue them in this way.
Yeah.
And yet still this indecisiveness or this indecision, that is wild to me. I totally agree with you.
But I think it's also hard for me to really relate to that because, well, I'm indecisive with little things, but when it comes to life decisions, and I feel like you're probably the same way.
Yeah.
I make life decisions like on a dime. Like I make a life decision. I'm like, that's that. Moving on.
See ya.
Like, oh, I'm going to move. All right. Goodbye in 2 weeks. Like,
right. All the time.
And then even
not
like
all the time, but like, no, it has happened numerous times.
Maybe not with like now having kids, but like most life decisions I've made in my life that are bigger, I've made. And I'll be like, I'm going to pray about it, blah, blah, blah. But like, I already know the decision I'm going to make. Mm-hmm. And I also have confidence in my relationship with the Lord that I'm like,
if I was missing this majorly.
Right. Yeah. He's going to let me know, or I'm going to talk to like the people that I trust, and they're going to be like, hey, I really don't know if that's wise, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And like, then I can figure it out from there. But even with Caden, I knew Caden, and he's younger than me. So that does play a role in like, I truly never thought about it for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then it hit a point where I thought about it a little bit, but I was like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And then last summer I was like, this is coming up. That's weird. And then our dad talked to me about it and was like, hey, have you ever thought about him? And I was like, no, knowing full well. I was like, what the heck? And our dad has never brought any guy up to me in my entire life to be like, oh, really? Hey, this is a really great person, blah, blah, blah.
That makes
Partially
sense.
because in all of the years that I have been like really at an age where I was interested in dating anybody.
Yeah.
It was like, I didn't live by them.
Right.
But yeah, he brought Caden up, and then we went to camp, and me and our friend Bella, who also knows Caden and all of us super well, was just like, you're an idiot. Like, why aren't you doing this? Like, this is a great idea. Like, you guys are going to get married, like, blah, blah. Right. And I was just like, you're crazy. And she's like, no, you're being stupid. And then we went to camp, and it was great. And then I sat in the car, and I told you, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like going to crap my pants right now. But I told you, and then literally like told Caden the next day. 2 days later, we started dating. And then 2 days later, I left. Yeah. So it was just very like, boom, boom, boom. But I kind of feel like I had to like shift what I thought about dating, or just like the person that you end up with, like at some point down the line, because for a long time, I always just figured like, it's just like the one, you know. And obviously, I do believe there's one person in terms of,
like Elmer Fudd.
I believe I will get married to one person, and I will be married to them for the rest of my life.
Yeah, the one as in commitment.
Right. The one is in like, I think now I've realized it's just a choice you make. Like, it's not this like you're searching for a needle in the haystack of your life, and if you miss it, you miss it, and you're alone forever.
And if you pick a needle and you should have picked how does that work? If you accidentally pick a piece of hay instead of a needle, I was picturing it the other way around. It would be a very prickly trip into a needle stack looking for a piece of hay. But
a prickly trip.
If you accidentally pick a piece of hay instead of finding the needle, well, then your whole life trajectory is fricked.
Right.
And
yeah. But God's just so much better than that. And this little fly is really annoying.
Well, he's a guest on the podcast. But
he's a fly on the wall.
There's a fly on the wall. It's supposed to be a fly on your forehead.
Yeah. Geez.
But yeah, I think that's also a misconception. Dating as Christians,
there's not just one person that you're like,
you better find them, or else.
And I think too, like that was the thing I kind of had to learn, is because even when there's been a couple, like I would say there's been 2 guys that I've liked seriously before Caden, that I was like, I think that me and this person will date and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and. Both?
Blah, 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 meaning potentially get married or whatever.
Right. Yeah, like I thought, oh, maybe this is it or whatever. Yeah. And both times, the first time more than the second time, but both times it was like God, is this my husband? Like trying to like figure it out through prayer or like prophetic words or whatever. And then
which
like
aren't inherently bad and can help.
No. That's not like the worst
Yep.
way to like try and figure it out
Right.
by any means.
Right.
But I think I put it in a place like I put it in a wrong spot.
It was like, it didn't involve you at all.
Right. It was like, make it like, I really hope this person is it and blah, 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 blah. And then it would like, I'd devote almost like a year of like trying to figure out if this person, I'm like, if you don't already know and you've been around them for this long, like your answer's no.
I agree.
And I know that some people would hear that and like they maybe have a unique situation. They're like, well, no, it did take a while and then we were together and now we've been married for 20 years and blah, blah, whatever.
Right.
And that happens. But I think like, I don't know, at least my experience has been, if you're so unsure, it's a no. And just like...
Yeah. Again, it's not like across the board.
Right.
But I do think even with people who things took a year to develop, 2 years to develop or whatever, I do think at some point in the early days of being friends or knowing someone or being in their vicinity or in the same friend group, whatever, I think at least those thoughts come to mind. And I think you can at least look back in some moments and usually, again, not 100%, but usually be able to picture the concept of like, what if I was with that person? Even if you put it on a shelf and back burner for a long time or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and it wasn't like unwarranted because both of those times it was a person that like they seemed into me and I was kind of like, oh, weird. I wouldn't normally like you. But then it was like almost as if the idea of this person liking me made me like, oh, I could do this. Sure. And then I would like convince myself, but then I would convince myself so hard that I was like, is this it? Blah, blah, blah. And I think I would get so caught up in it that then I'd be waiting around for something to happen when it was probably like both of those situations were like, oh yeah, actually no. And I was like, okay, which it was like both of those times, both people and I talked and we both liked each other. So it wasn't like I'm just sitting there making things up. But it's just funny how like I got myself in such a position of like, when is the Lord going to tell me this is my spouse or not?
Right.
When I think it's just now I'm realizing it's so much more about just like a choice. And it's a choice both people have to be fully making as well.
Right.
If you're like, yeah, I've made my choice, but the person's like still wavering or is like not interested or is like not communicative or whatever, it's like, well, that's not really, at that point, you can't make that choice.
Yeah.
Like
it becomes impossible to be in a relationship where people aren't investing.
Right. It is two people.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. I think that's something as Christians I've had to unlearn is just like the idea of there being one, which I do believe fully. Like, I've only ever dated Caden, and I will get married to Caden, and I will be married to Caden for the rest of my life.
At this point, if you don't, I'm going to be pissed.
Everybody will be pissed. Caden would be pissed. But we both have, like, said that to each other, too. We're like, even just the idea of maybe we're naive, like, maybe we're naive and people are like, oh my gosh, to be like, yeah, we're going to get married. Yeah, there'll never be any like struggle that we like would break us up or whatever. But we've also resigned to the fact like, well, if we're naive together and we're just going to go find out.
Right.
Like, I think that's a huge part of what dating, especially as a Christian is. It's not so high stakes. Like, yes, you date for marriage. Yes, you should have good intentions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's more just like, just go find out. Like,
yeah,
you get, if you click with this person, you guys are attracted to each other, like talk, see how it goes, find out. If not, like there's so many other people. God is so good. It's not just going to be like one situation and then you're screwed.
Right.
Which is kind of how I thought for a long time. I was like, well, if it's this, like who in the world could it possibly be that's going to love me and my family and believe the same way I do and want all the same? Like, I was like, this doesn't exist. And then lo and behold, it literally exists like 10 minutes down the road, a person that we've known for years that I never imagined it would be. But like, or like with Kiana, like, also met through like a lot of the same people and you had like, it's just even the fact like you both live in Michigan, you both love the Lord, you didn't know each other and then you knew of each other and then you clicked, started talking, started dating. Now you're married for years and have 2 kids and 1 on the way. It's like there's just such a like, I don't know, I feel like once you kind of let go of the idea of it's just this one situation or this one thing. And if it's not this, it'll never be anything else. Once you're kind of like, whenever it happens and it's going to be great, then usually it happens pretty quick because like your threshold for like, or your limitation for what it has to look like kind of goes away. Yeah. So then God is like, well, now I can kind of do whatever and you're going to love it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But it definitely took me a while to get to that point.
Right.
Many years.
Yeah. And I think that's the other side of this. Now that you bring up the time, dating as Christians being, you know, again, like kind of the topic of discussion is so often Christians, and I mean, I've done this, you know, just in general, but so often Christians, we just feel like there's this inherent thing with relationships, I guess, that like, let's get married young.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's do this thing. There's there's like a physical attraction. You want to start getting all physical or whatever. And so, but we're not doing that until marriage because like, that's how we should live. And that's what we need to honor. So like, I'm pretty confident it's you. So like, let's do this, you know, like, let's get married or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
wait,
and so I think
check
there is
camera real quick.
Oh yeah, do you think? But I do think that there is.
Whoa.
I've had to do that. I've had to do that for so long. Crazy. Should wrap up. We can edit out. I feel like there is some stuff to edit out from this episode that was like fluff that like we don't need.
I just like keeping stuff in because I don't like disrupting the flow.
I agree with you.
Especially when there's only one camera. But we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah. But
getting married young, all that stuff.
Yeah, I just think that there's a sense among young Christians that it's like, all right, well, we need to like, we're wasting years. We're wasting time that we could be experiencing this, or, you know, my friends or my siblings or these people that I know, like they did it a certain way. Like God's going to speak to me and he's going to do the same thing for me. And I just think like I tell my students all the time, I actually tell them this about everything. Where to go to college, what to do in life, you know, whatever. But take the pressure off.
Yeah.
It is not that serious.
Yeah.
One of my students, we've had countless conversations about relationships, and it's funny because in one conversation that we were having, you know, he's talking to me about just like all these things that he wants to say to this girl, or like how he's feeling and whatnot. But then, and I was telling him, I was like, bro, like take the pressure off. Like it's not that serious yet. But he was like, Seth, I hear you. Nailed it.
That was fun.
That was crazy. He's like, Seth, I hear you. But also, I want to say these things. This is how I feel. Yeah. And I was like, all right, bro, I got you. And I was like, wow, crazy. But I was like, all right, bro, I got you. Love you, man. Let me know if you want to talk again.
Right.
And he comes back to me like a month or two later and he's like, yeah, one day I was just kind of thinking about it and praying about it. Crash. Something fell. I was thinking about it, praying about it, and I think those things that I want to say and kind of how I feel, like, I just need to wait. And I was like, hell yeah. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know? And I think when you take the pressure off to like rush into something or do something a certain way because that's how other Christians have done it or whatever, or I just want to get to like the point where I can do all these things, have all this freedom, make all these decisions, be in this relationship, you know, hit all these goals, do it as young as possible. Like that's a lie from the enemy. Like you got time, take the pressure off.
Yeah.
The Lord is speaking to you. And when you listen for like how he's leading you into something, it's not going to take more time than it needs to, but it's also not going to go faster than it has to.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Crazy.
Because there's so many things that I did. Like, I always thought growing up, because our parents' mom was 19 when she got married.
Right.
You and Kiana was 19. You were like 22 or whatever. And that was the same age as our mom and dad.
A month away from turning
and
23
like,
and 20.
all of our aunts and uncles, except for one, like got married really young. And I always just thought in my head, like, I'll be like 18 or 19 when I get married.
Right.
And then stuff that I did between 18 and then like, well, I'm not married now, but not that long from now, is like all those years like I did so much stuff that like the person I was at 18 or 19 versus now is so different.
Very different.
And like, I can't imagine what I would be like if I would have gotten married then. But then there's other people like Caden, who's younger than me, that like, I see him now and I think like, I fully think you could be married right now and you'd be great.
Right.
And so it's like, it's not that one is right and that like, my life would have been terrible if I would have gotten married at like 19 or something like that. But just like, because like our parents or you and Kiana, like obviously it does go really, really well. For some people, but it's like neither one of those is bad, and I'm so glad that I had all of the years and got to do all the stuff that I got to do and all those things, because now it just makes now being in a relationship that much better, that much easier, because I know how to like communicate about things. I know how to talk and not like get upset. I know like a lot about who I am and what I want, to where then I can say yes to somebody like Caden and know like this is fully like exactly what I want for the rest of my life, because I know who I am and I have like spent that time with the Lord to like get to that place. But it is really funny just like having to let go of so much, because but then being so happy to let go of it, because I totally thought growing up like, oh, I'll be married at 18, 19. And then when I wasn't, I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why have I not even dated anybody? Why, blah, 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 all this stuff. Like, there's got to be something that like is wrong that I don't realize that like everybody else knows. But then just realizing like, oh, it's actually not at all that serious.
Yeah, 100%. It's really not. It's really not.
And even like the flip side of what you're saying with that student, it's like, God is so good and it's so not that serious that even if he would have like gone and said those things, he would like, maybe it would have like gone a little funny or been a little like rough. But
more difficult to navigate.
Yeah. But then it's like, okay, well, you learned from that situation and it got so good that something really beautiful will come out of that. Yeah. Regardless. Right. If that's a perspective that you have and how you choose to see it. Yeah. And that's like, that's just how I've chosen to see. That's how I've chosen to see my life. Yeah. For some reason that sounded wrong.
Choosed. That's how you've choosed.
That's how I've choiced to see my life. But like, it makes everything not that big of a deal. Even like coming like down to whoever it is, which obviously is a huge decision to make. Right. One of the biggest decisions you make in your life is who you choose to marry. Yeah. But like, once you make your choice, it's like, okay, you made your choice. God's going to make it really, really beautiful. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you make stupid mistakes or anything like that. And you don't do dumb stuff. Yeah. But I think as Christians, at least like I feel like we've talked a lot about like the choosing who it is type of like part of it. Maybe not like the intricacies of like when you're dating, which maybe that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll go back in this topic eventually.
But like the whole idea of like choosing someone to date and all that stuff, it's not as like crazy as you think it is. And just because no one's chosen you yet doesn't mean you're like doomed or you're going to be single till you're like 40.
And it doesn't mean that
if you are like, there's going to be a journey to get to a point where like that doesn't bother you.
Right. Right.
And you actually really, really enjoy your life. Cause like one of our uncles didn't get married until he was like in his mid 30s or something like
32,
that.
34, 35 maybe.
I'm sure he would say now, like, he would not trade that journey for anything because he is so in love with his wife and they have this beautiful journey and this beautiful story and now have like a day to day that they love so much. And she's like literally so perfect for him. Cool. And he got so many years of getting to do this really fun stuff and being like the fun uncle that like did all these things with us. And he was able to do that because he wasn't like, he was the only one not married yet.
Yeah. And to be fair, every uncle we have on that side of the family could easily be classified as the fun uncle. Yeah. Literally.
Good competition.
All five.
So fun.
Or four, because mom's mom with dad is one of the six. So there's 5 uncles, and not counting him, there's 4 uncles. Yeah. All 4 of those uncles
so fun.
Are so fun.
Yeah.
But all of the other
they're
3,
all married by the time
like
that
married
we were
and whatnot. Yeah.
Like older or like kids. And so it's like, if that was going to be your journey, which I think if the desire of your heart's to be married, God's not going to be like, well, screw you. I want you to be single till you're 45. Like, it's just all like, I don't know. He just knows you so well and he knows what you desire. And if you're walking with him, you're going to end up wanting the same things.
Yeah.
And so it's really not as like, oh, what's going to happen to me, as if it's like so out of your control.
Right.
But it's also not something you have to like so adamantly control that it's like really high pressure either.
Yeah. I think that's such a healthy perspective, and we probably can end there for this episode. But yeah, I think the moral of the story is take the pressure off.
Yeah.
There's so much time.
But just communicate.
Yeah.
Take the pressure off, but communicate.
Communicate well.
Don't be
There's
afraid.
so much time.
Just go find out.
And yeah, just when you make a decision, there can't be this fear of like, I'm screwing up my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something,
gone.
you know, exactly. It's like, all right, look, you feel those feelings, listen and obey and do things in an honorable way.
Yeah.
But go make a decision.
Yeah.
And then also, oh, it's not happening for me right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have time.
Right.
And I'm with the Lord.
Yeah.
So let's have some fun.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good.
Pretty
good advice. That's good advice.
We'll have to revisit it again at some point.
We will revisit this. I think
there's
in my
like
head,
the intricacies of like when
in my head,
you're
there
dating.
are some details that I want to get into. But, but not for today.
For another day.
For another day, another
two.
time. A part 2, dating as Christians.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well,
see you on the next one.
This has been episode 2. My name is
Kids.
The Poos.
Jay.
Goodbye.